All right, welcome in. It's another episode of the Morgan Thomas Show, this time in the podcast form. We're going to try something a little bit different. Hope you enjoy our show and our content. We're trying to get some more content out there to you. It's a Friday, so I'm bringing on Dixon Massengill, our intern. Welcome to the show, Dixon.
What's going on? Good to be here.
Excited to have you back. Been a couple of weeks since we've had you. Been so busy at work and with the holidays, we haven't done our normal Friday thing, so I apologize to the fans out there, but glad to have you back and ready to talk about Clemson versus Virginia Tech. But you had mentioned that you would really like to talk about the college football playoffs, and we really don't have a lot of time on our 90-minute show that we do on Monday with Allen and Houston. And so I was like, you know what, that's a good idea. That's why you bring on an intern, to bring me some good ideas. So appreciate that. We're going to do the top 25 Week 14 college football playoffs, and they were released Tuesday. And so just to kind of go through, not really the top 25, we'll do the ones that matter the most, those ones that are going to be in or possibly in the college football playoffs. And that is Alabama, number 1, number 2, Notre Dame, number 3, Clemson, number 4, Ohio State, and the first 2 out, 5, Texas A&M, and 6, Florida. So 2, I guess you could say, ACC teams in Notre Dame and Clemson. 3 SEC teams in Alabama, Texas A&M, Florida. And then the lone Big Ten team, which, I think a lot of Clemson fans argue about. Maybe all college football fans, but Ohio State, 4th there. When you look at those numbers there, just glancing at those rankings there, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I think that the guys running the rankings have said it well. Ohio State, we know they have a lot of good talent. We know they have a lot of good skill, but they don't have enough games on their roster. And multiple people have said they've watched how Ohio State plays, and they just don't think that there would be enough, surface material to tell you that Ohio State is one of the top 3 teams in the nation. Right now they have them sitting at number 4, which I think is a good spot to have them because you don't want to drop a team like with the caliber of Ohio State and with the skill level, talent level. You don't want to drop them out of your top 4. But like we've addressed before, if they don't get 2 more games in and get to that 6-game minimum, then they're not going to be able to make it to the playoff, which would really stink because I think that Ohio State would have a great shot in those playoff games and a great shot to make it to the national championship. But switching off of Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame, 2 ACC teams that are going to be probably, if the results hold out, the games tomorrow, if those 2 teams can make it to the ACC championship, there could be a chance that we would see 2 ACC teams in the playoff. And then, of course, at number 1, you have Alabama, who has just been steamrolling people all year and has definitely earned their rank at number 1 with that 8-0 record, trying to get in 2 more games here at the end of the season to get to their 10-game requirement, I guess, in the SEC. But we think that they're going to win both of those, and we think they'll go 10-0 and probably be a favorite to win the college football playoff national championship. So and then obviously you have number 5 and number 6, Texas A&M and Florida, who are really trying to get in with either Florida and Alabama facing each other in the SEC championship, and maybe and there's a lot of different ways that could play out. Texas A&M trying to get in. I think they have a couple more games to play, and they're trying to win those big and give themselves a real shot to get in. But you have 2 great ACC teams sitting on the outside, the first 2 out, who are really trying to get all of their ducks in a row and trying to get into that one of those top 4 spots to make it to the college football playoff.
I think when I look at it, I'm starting down at the bottom. You mentioned Florida at 6, 7-1, likely going to play. Well, they're going to play at Tennessee this weekend, and then they're going to host LSU as a makeup game from earlier on in the season, which was one preseason I was really anxious to see because Florida LSU has been a good game the past couple of years. And last year I felt like started out good, and then Joe Burrow kind of took it over towards the third and fourth quarter. But Florida, to me, can win both of those games, should win both of those games, and finish the year 9-1, and will be leading because they have those. They still have two divisions in their conference, and not doing really like what the Big 12 does or like what ACC is doing this year. During this weird COVID year, but they still have split divisions in their conference, and so Florida will go 9-1, and that really hurts Texas A&M. It's almost like we mentioned this before we started, but Texas A&M really could have lost to Florida and beat Alabama. That would have been better for them, but because they lost to Alabama and beat Florida, that put them second in their division. And even if they win out, they have at Auburn, at Tennessee, and then they still have to figure out how to make up their Ole Miss game. So they're a game behind Alabama and Florida right now. But it's going to be hard for them. 2 away games in that situation, and Ole Miss, is what we know, can score on anybody. They hung points up on Alabama, and they can do that really at will. And so you don't know how Texas A&M is going to finish. I really don't necessarily. I'm not the biggest fan of Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher just because of how slow he plays. They're the number one in the SEC in time of possession. It's because they run the play clock out to 0 or 1 second almost every single play, even if they're behind. But they are doing well this year, 6-1. They have a great offensive line, and they have great third down defense. And so Texas A&M's defense as a whole is good. I'm not saying I wouldn't want to see Texas A&M in the playoffs, but their destiny is not in their hands. Alabama would have to lose, and you've got Alabama this weekend, 8 o'clock at night, going to LSU, and that's a game that Alabama should destroy them. I mean, LSU has lost so much, and people are jumping ship, almost kind of like a Florida State example. People are not playing for LSU this year. Ed Orgeron's trying to put out the fire and say that, they're going to build a championship team again. But this is what we all warned, especially Clemson fans, warned that this could be a one-hit wonder type deal with everybody jumping ship. And it's definitely looking that way with LSU. So Alabama should win that. Then they have a makeup game against Arkansas. It still hasn't been scheduled yet. But Arkansas is not a team I think that could handle them. So in that case, I'm thinking that Alabama is going to sit here and be 10-0, Texas A&M 9-1, Florida 9-1, and that leaves Texas A&M out. Now Texas A&M could be, if they do lose a game, then they're out for sure. But even if Alabama loses one of those games, the tiebreaker goes to whoever beat each other straight up, and Alabama beat Texas A&M. So there's no way Alabama loses 2 games, and so Texas A&M, I'm sorry, left out, at least from the SEC championship game is concerned. But that puts you at undefeated Alabama, a 1-loss Florida, a 1-loss Texas A&M, and Texas A&M won't have that championship game to play. So what do you think in the SEC championship? Do you think that it'll be Alabama-Florida, and do you think that Florida has a chance at all?
I've actually thought about that a lot. I think that Florida, they have Kyle Pitts and Kyle Trask are really their 2 best guys. This season, they've just absolutely they've wrecked teams, throwing the ball over their heads. Kyle Trask has done an amazing job of spreading the ball out, throwing to his receivers, getting everybody the ball. And Pitts has just been amazing on the outside. I believe he had 3 touchdowns last week coming back from his injury. Looked absolutely incredible. So I think it'll be really imperative for those 2 to have a good game if they're going to go up against this Alabama team who has proven themselves to be one of the best teams in the country by far. And we see that by their ranking and their statistics and all that different stuff. But they've just looked really good this year. And I think it will definitely be an entertaining game to watch, no doubt. 2 electric offenses going up against 2 pretty good defenses. And I think that the odds are probably in Alabama's favor, pretty good. I don't know what the spread will be. I'm assuming probably not more than 2 touchdowns. I don't think that the ESPN guys would put Alabama more than 2 touchdowns over Florida. But I think it'll definitely be a fun one to watch. Florida is going to have to play their best ball, the best ball they've played all season, and just absolutely show the country what they're made of and prove to everybody that they should be in that playoff. So I think that's kind of where I stand on that. I think that Florida's going to have to play a really good game, get all of their players involved, and play the best football they've played all year.
It's interesting because Florida could go if Florida and Texas A&M are both 9-1, then you would think Florida would, even if they made it to the SEC championship game, they're really there because of that divisional setup. It's not there because they're better, because Texas A&M beat Florida. And so in that case, you would almost say that Florida could get all the way to the SEC championship game and Texas A&M still be ahead of them in the rankings. And they may not move higher than 6. They may be kind of stuck at this ceiling right here because of that loss to Texas A&M. And then if they lose, which I do believe they'll lose to Alabama, then they'll go to 9-2, and they'll, even if they were, say, flip-flopped and above Texas A&M, then they will drop below Texas A&M. So they, more than likely, I'm seeing it as Alabama, Texas A&M, Florida are your top 3 finishing out of the year from the SEC. It's very interesting this year because they still got, these top teams still, they're losing to each other, or they're playing each other, or they yet to play each other. So, you could see repeat games. And talking about repeat games, you're seeing Notre Dame and Clemson. Notre Dame has Syracuse. I've said it many times. Syracuse, worst team in America. Worst team in America. They spiked the ball on 4th down. Did you see that? They spiked the ball in the red zone on the 4th down to try to, had a chance to win the game and spiked it. You really, no excuse for that. Complete idiocracy there. And the quarterback just didn't know what he was doing. Just had no idea. Had no game management skills there. Panicked, spiked the ball. So Notre Dame is going to host Syracuse, so they don't have to travel. I think Notre Dame wins this one, no problem. We don't even talk about it. They're just going to win. That's going to make Notre Dame 10-0. Undefeated, their first year into the conference, which frustrates me even more. But Notre Dame 10-0. And Clemson cannot let Notre Dame come into the ACC, win everything, go undefeated, and walk away and never join the ACC. That would be such a disgrace to the conference as a whole. That would be such an embarrassment to everybody but Notre Dame that this cannot happen. Clemson cannot allow this to happen. And the good thing is that Clemson lost in double overtime with a bunch of people out, starters out, mainly on the defense, not the quarterback that everybody worried about, but the defense. Clemson's 8-1. They're going to travel to Virginia Tech, 7:30 p.m. tomorrow. Virginia Tech is a good running team, but that's about it. They get most of their yards with Khalil Herbert running the ball, Hendon Hooker running the ball, and sometimes they throw it, but they're really not as effective that way, and their defense can be exposed. I went and looked at some of the articles written by Hokie writers. None of them believe that the Hokies are going to win. Some of them have even mentioned it's going to be a 30-point or more blowout. The spread is -22. Monday I took -22, Clemson to cover. I'm taking it again. Clemson looks like they have their confidence back. I'm not going to say swagger because I think it's like overused, but they have their confidence back. They have their quarterback back. And they not only have their quarterback back, but they have Tyler Davis. They have James Skalski. They have Brian Bresee back. And so that leads me to believe Clemson's going to be 9-1. Notre Dame 10-0. They're not, they did some schedule rearranging. Now, if Clemson were to lose this game and Miami Hurricanes win out, Miami could make it. But I don't believe that's going to happen, so don't even worry about that. Clemson beats Virginia Tech, goes up there. The only concern, which is a concern we've always had, is, and you and I have talked about this many times, Travis Etienne, non-existent this year, really. Hasn't had a 200-yard rushing game since Miami, 8 weeks ago. What do you think about it? 8 weeks ago? It almost makes me want to throw up to say that because I know how good Travis Etienne is.
Yeah, I think that he's not had his best year. We obviously know that. He I think it would be great is if he just kind of saved up all of his best running for the end of the year for the final stretch
Oh yeah.
where he knew inside that he was going to need it against Notre Dame. He was going to need it to go punish a Notre Dame team that did us wrong, did Clemson wrong. And he knows that this is his senior year. He needs to put everything he's got out there, give it all he's got. And because he came back this year because he wanted to be better. He wanted to be one of the first round draft picks, which we know he already will be. Despite not running a lot, he has had a great year, really catching the ball and running the ball. Not his best year, but it's been a pretty good year. And I think that for him to come out these last few games and just run all over people is going to be absolutely amazing to watch. And I think that would be great for the Clemson team, whose run game, like you said, has not really been as good as it has been in past years. This year, it would definitely be amazing to watch Travis Etienne just pull out all of his cards and just run all over teams and make some people look really bad.
I don't know if it'll happen. I mean, you got me riled up thinking about it. You got me excited. Dixon, you're doing what you set out to do, but then I think about the offensive line. They're not a bad offensive line. They're just a pass-blocking offensive line. Run blocking is not their specialty. They're an elite offensive line when it comes to protecting Trevor Lawrence. They're not an elite offensive line when it comes to pushing the line of scrimmage for Travis Etienne. And it's shown. And his yardages are down, his yards per carry down, and not having 3-digit running games in, I think he's only had like 2 or 3 this year. But with that being said, I think if you give me a healthy Clemson with Travis and Trevor Lawrence and Skalski and Tyler Davis specifically, the media doesn't talk about Tyler Davis, but we know from Clemson fans that Tyler Davis is the glue that keeps that defense together and really enables the defense to be so lethal in pass coverage because they don't have to worry so much about everything else because Davis just does so much by himself. I think with Davis back healthy, Skalski as well healthy, I would say give me Clemson to beat Notre Dame at a neutral field. And in that sense, it may hurt Notre Dame because, well, it would definitely hurt Notre Dame if there's an undefeated Ohio State. Because I think if Ohio State can finish the year and make it and win the Big Ten, then, then they're in. I think they're in. Now, if they don't make it to the Big Ten championship game, a game's canceled or whatever, then they're out. But I think everybody's giving Ohio State the benefit of the doubt for being one of the best teams last year and carrying that over into this year. Every other team can't bank on last year's success except for maybe Ohio State and Alabama. Clemson seems to be the team that always has to prove themselves every single time to even make it. But I think Clemson goes in and beats Notre Dame. That makes Clemson 10-1, Notre Dame 10-1. And so Notre Dame will fall, and I think Notre Dame will still be ahead of Texas A&M, who doesn't even go to the SEC championship game. So Notre Dame won't fall. And when I say that, I mean Notre Dame. I mean I'm saying that, and I'm reading it out now. Notre Dame could fall only to 4th at that point because Ohio State would jump up to 3rd. Clemson would jump up to 2nd. I don't think anybody will beat Alabama. And so I think you mentioned this before we got on the podcast, but there is a high chance that Notre Dame could lose the ACC championship game, and because Florida would be a 2-loss team and a Texas A&M team would be a team that didn't make it to the championship game, that Notre Dame could still be left into the playoffs and turn around and play Alabama.
I could see that. I think that, and a lot of people have talked about that scenario of how Notre Dame, even though they lose, can still get in. I think there's a lot of different ways. People are going to have their own scenarios of how that could happen. What I would really look at is, obviously, like you said, Ohio State to win their conference, win the Big Ten, and be undefeated, and really give themselves kind of a shoe-in for the top four, at least one spot in the top four. Then, like you said, if Notre Dame were to lose and maybe a close game, maybe kind of the same thing that happened the last time Clemson and Notre Dame played, just flip-flopped, put Clemson on top. I think that would give the rankings committee a little bit of proof to show, hey, we saw Clemson didn't have all their players when they played the first time, and they still lost by just a little bit. But then Notre Dame understood that, and they knew that they had to get better for the second time that they played, and they only lost by a little bit. So maybe we should put them in at top. Maybe we should put them in at number 4, because looking at Notre Dame, we're looking at Texas A&M or a 2-loss Florida team. Notre Dame looks like the better team to have in that top 4. So I think that could be a scenario in which Notre Dame stays in the top 4 even after a loss to Clemson.
I would love for just for chaos sake, I would love for Alabama to lose to Florida, Notre Dame to lose to Clemson, and Ohio State to only have played 6 games, like get a game canceled or something like that. Like I would, or only have played 5 games. So you'd have an undefeated 5-win team, but then 4 1-loss teams. Show me what happens then. I don't even want to go through it. That's like hurting my head as I'm saying it. Or even say Ohio State loses to one of these teams, but still wins the Big Ten or something like that. It would be awesome to have like 5 or 6 1-loss teams would be amazing. But
my goodness, all you would talk about for the next week was, oh my goodness, this scenario, this scenario, this scenario, this scenario. The college
think
football.
About it this way: what if Notre Dame loses to Clemson, Ohio State wins out and gets to their 7-0 as a Big Ten champion? Clemson would go to number 2. Ohio State would go to number 3. Notre Dame would go probably to number 4. And then Notre Dame would play Alabama. Clemson would rematch with Ohio State. Let's say Clemson wins, and let's say Notre Dame somehow beats Alabama. I don't think it would happen, but let's just say. Then you'd have 3 Clemson versus Notre Dame games in 1 year. That would be really cool. I'm not even sure if that's even possible. I know people are like, "Come on, Morgan, don't even go down that road." But it could happen.
I mean, there is the possibility,
There is a possibility.
I mean, even like you heard some of the sportscasters say that night that the game was being played, I'd love to watch that game over and over again. 2, 3, 4 times.
You may get it.
Would never get bored. You may get it. There's a chance.
There's
a chance.
Well, this is our convoluted Week 14 Top 25 College Football Playoff Talk. As you can tell, nobody really knows. We're all making this up as we go. Dixon, thank you for shining some light on the situation or talking me through it. As I'm writing it down, I still have more questions than I did when I started, I think. Let us know in the comments what you think. Are we completely off? Are we right? Are we wrong? Your thoughts, your top 25, your top 5, your top 6. And make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We'd really appreciate your love and support there as well. Every Monday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we go live. We talk all things Clemson Tigers and college football in general. And thanks for tuning in.